I don't know how much you know about my background, but let me tell you, I am a retired police officer after 27 years. I went to Philadelphia where I was assistant district attorney for about 3.5 years. Then I went I went first to the city. I left the district attorney's office, but stayed with the city as a city solicitor. I handled civil rights cases for them. Then I decided to go into private practice and represent individuals in civil rights matters. That kind of stems from my early days when I was a young man. I was in the process of becoming a police officer when I was profiled by some undercover cops who shot at me, and then they assaulted me pretty well. I don't know how you describe that. And then they charged me with a crime I didn't commit. And so I had to fight to clear my name. I also charged them with the crime. And ultimately everything was dismissed on both sides, and then we settled through litigation. And it was my grandfather, at that point I didn't want to be a police officer anymore. And my grandfather said to me, no, if you really want to make change, you do it from within. You want to be a police officer, go be a police officer. You're a better person than these people are. And I can't say that it was a warm, fuzzy moment. We went toe to toe on this issue. I said I was done, and his argument was I wasn't. Ultimately, he won. I went back to the academy and I became a police officer, and that's where I did my 27 years and raised to the rank of captain in charge of criminal investigations for the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office. I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of my career because of the work I've done, but also because the fact that when I saw wrongdoing, I reported it. When I saw wrongdoing, I documented it. When I decided to run last time, and we were talking about some of my positions in law enforcement, and I was doing a lot of media appearances for talking about the George Floyd murder and a few others around the country. My wife actually pulled out a memo I wrote, I think in 1998 or maybe sooner, reporting bias policing and naming names, and I had forgotten about it.
Reporting what?
Bias policing.
Bias.
I wrote a 3-page memo saying why this person was, and he was a supervisor, why this person was bad for law enforcement. And I forgot all about that battle, and it was pretty brutal, but I survived. And even though they didn't act on my memo, years later this person ended up committing an actual crime. And when they searched his desk as a result of the crime, they found all the Ku Klux Klan material and everything that I had reported, I think, some 12 years earlier. So, I'm proud of that, not because, I uprooted somebody's career, but because you can report wrongdoing in law enforcement and still have a good career. And when we hear about this nonsense about the blue line and you can't cross it and it's a code of silence, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. You can do what you have to do. You have to have the courage to stand up to bullies, and you have to have the courage to report it when you see it. I didn't sue anybody. I didn't bring a lawsuit. I did it because it was the right thing to do. So that being said, that kind of ingrained in me that agent of change. And when I went to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, it was the same thing. I enjoyed being a prosecutor. It wasn't something that I was going to make a career out of, but I enjoyed the satisfaction of presenting the evidence. I also enjoyed getting rid of cases that should never have been brought in the first place. So, but what I didn't like was the way we handled sentencing. And so I couldn't get past the fact that we would have sentencing memorandums and it was glaring disparities between people of color and other people. And again, it was a little bit different for me at that time because I was a retired police officer, and my direct supervisor was about the same age as my oldest daughter. So, having a toe-to-toe with a supervisor in that situation is a little bit different than years ago, where I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not doing that, And, if you want me to pack my stuff, I can. I could be out of here in 15 minutes. And then her sending in her boss and having the same conversation because he and his father, or I and his father are about the same age. So I'm like, I appreciate the talk, but no, I'm not going to do that. So, but it became a problem because it was too frequent. And so it was time to move on. And when I was telling defense attorney about that story. He says, well, you don't belong here. You got to go to civil rights. Civil rights was your whole background. That's where you belong. And 2 weeks later, I was doing civil rights cases for the city. So I offer those stories only so you got to have an understanding of how I get passionate about things, and I dig in and I do what I believe is right. Running for Congress, being a representative for the people of South Jersey, recognizing that we're a little bit different than the rest of the state. We don't get treated well. Let's start with that. We don't get the same resources as people up north of us. So we have to, I think it's important to have representatives who understand our culture, our norms, our values, and fight and advocate for us to make sure resources come to us from Ocean County south.
It's time for Tim.